Hello everyone, welcome back to the Global Alert TV channel. Please subscribe and like my videos. Today we are taking a deep dive into the joint military drills between Russia and Belarus, known as Zapad 2025, the West 2025 war games that have stirred considerable unease across Europe. We'll walk through external appearances of the exercise, dig into the interior or internal dynamics, examine its performance or capabilities, talk about the safety features or risk mitigation aspects, highlight unique selling points of the drills in terms of strategic messaging, consider what the price or cost and implications are, and conclude with a big picture takeaway. Starting with the exterior, on the surface, Zapad 2025 presents itself as a routine, large-scale allied exercise between the Russian Federation and Republic of Belarus, held from 12 to 16 September 2025. It is described as taking place deep inside Belarus at central training areas near Borisov and across Russian territory including the Kaliningrad enclave. Officially, Belarus said the exercise would test the Union state's defensive readiness. On the outside, the imagery is of armored vehicles, missile launchers, jets and drones being mobilized, of national flags, of an allied display of force. It sends a message: we are ready. We are coordinated, we are militarily capable. It is also set against the backdrop of heightened tensions with NATO and with neighboring European states. The exterior is therefore both show and substance: visible formations, visible hardware, visible flag waving, visible training grounds being used, observers being invited. For example, the US military confirmed that it sent observers to the drills for the first time since the invasion of Ukraine. From Europe's vantage, the exterior is one of an assertive drill near NATO's eastern flank, raising anxieties. So that's the exterior: big, visible, message-laden, somewhat performative but with genuine capabilities being displayed. Now moving into the interior. That is the deeper internal dynamics, the planning, logistics, command relationships, scenario design, strategic intent and implementation. This section is big, because the interior is where much of the significance lies. First, from what analysts say, Zapad 2025 is not just a friendly training exercise, but part of how Russia and Belarus envisage future conflict scenarios, particularly with the West. One policy memo describes the exercise as about the character of a future war, and notes that Russia uses Belarus as a platform and integrates Belarusian forces under Russian control. Within the interior, you have the following threads: logistics and scale. Although Belarus officially put the participant figure at around 13,000, experts caution that number may understate the effective size, because additional parallel drills run under the same rubric may swell the footprint to tens of thousands. Movement of units between states, deep inner Belarus training areas instead of right on the border, and integrated logistics between Russia and Belarus all point to a combined command axis. Scenario design. The exercises reportedly include drills with the Oreshnik missile system, intermediate range, and even training related to nuclear weapons employment. That shifts interior planning from mere conventional maneuvers to strategic deterrence and escalation frameworks. The interior also includes coordination of drones, long-range missiles, air and sea operations, together with ground forces. For instance, cruise missile launches over the Barents Sea were part of the drills. Command and control. Belarusian armed forces appear to be increasingly integrated with Russian command structures. The memo highlights that Belarusian territory is effectively a forward-deployed logistics base for Russia in the West. For interior workings that matters: training, communications, joint doctrine, interoperability, and even legal alignment. Politically, Belarus has deepened its defense treaty with Russia, meaning interior decision-making is more closely aligned with Moscow's strategic aims. Signal function versus operational function. While the interior planning has operational elements, partly the exercise serves signaling to Russia's domestic audience, to Belarusian population, to NATO, and to other states. Analysts note that despite being billed as defensive, the underlying scenarios lean offensive or at least gray zone. That duality, defensive veneer plus offensive possibility, is a key interior dimension. Risk management and staging. By holding large parts of the exercise farther from the border, and by claiming a smaller scale, the interior planning attempts to reduce immediate provocation, while still gaining the training value and signaling effect. Inside the exercise, the logistics also have to cope with terrain, weather, readiness of troops, integration of new systems, and maintaining secrecy or ambiguity where desired. Multi-domain integration. Interior design appears to incorporate ground, air, sea, missile, drone, and cyber hybrid dimensions, though open data on cyber is limited. The integration of these domains is a hallmark of modern Russian military thinking. The drills allow testing this integration in a controlled environment but near real-world pressures. All of this means that the interior of Zapad 2025 is robust, complex, and strategically significant. It is less about nice tanks in a field, and more about joint allied readiness plus strategic signaling plus platform for deeper integration. From a viewer's perspective, the interior reveals the true meaning behind the exercise. The ambitions of Russia and Belarus, the message to NATO and Europe, the training value for future operations, and the shaping of doctrines and hardware deployment. It is where technical sophistication, command relationships, interoperability, and strategic signaling meet, so that covers the interior in depth. Turning now to performance. That is how the exercise has performed in terms of execution, readiness, showcase of capabilities, and responses from outside. On the performance front, the drills included launches of cruise missiles over the Barents Sea by Russia, demonstrating long-range strike capability and integration of air and missile assets. The invitation of observers including from NATO countries, and the US acceptance, indicates an attempt at openness and legitimacy. It appears that while the scale is scaled down, compared to the 2021 iteration, which involved far more troops, the performance still sends signals of readiness, especially given Russia's overstretch in Ukraine. From an external viewpoint, Europe is watching closely and responding. For example, Poland beefed up its border readiness in response to the drills. Overall, the performance seems both credible and concerning. Credible because real weapons systems, multi-domain assets, and alliance coordination are in play. Concerning because the exercise is close to NATO's flank and occurs amid heightened regional tensions. Next we look at safety features, or, more accurately, risk mitigation and transparency elements built into the exercise to reduce escalation or misunderstanding. While no military exercise is completely safe, the organizers appear to have included some features to reduce immediate tension. For example, the exercise was intentionally held further within Belarus away from the immediate border to ease neighbor states' anxiety. Belarus stated the drills were scaled down compared to previous versions. Observers from 56 OSCE states were invited. These are all safety or transparency mechanisms, showing that it is not necessarily a surprise attack, showing that elements are open to monitoring. On the Russian-Belarus side, the safety feature is partly the troop of defensive narrative, which aims to reduce alarm. Internally, the inclusion of civilian infrastructure and mobilization of services in Belarus suggests they are practicing whole-of-society readiness, rather than just strike operations, which can be framed as less provocative though still serious. On the flip side, risk remains. The same exercise includes long-range missiles and nuclear weapons scenario training. The ambiguity of scale and intent means neighbors may misinterpret and overreact. So the safety features exist, but the risk environment remains elevated. Now let's move to unique selling points USPs of Zapad 2025, why this exercise stands out, and what message it seeks to convey. The first USP is strategic integration. It demonstrates how Russia and Belarus are deepening military integration, including joint logistics, command, and use of Belarusian territory as a potential staging ground. That makes it distinct from many bilateral drills. The second USP is signaling to Europe and NATO. By holding big drills near the western flank, including ballistic missile training and long-range strike assets, the exercise acts as a demonstration of deterrence and force projection. The third USP is modernization and multi-domain capability. Inclusion of drones, missile launches, air and naval operations show that the Allied forces are investing in exercising modern warfare dimensions, not just infantry maneuvers. Fourth USP is internal messaging. For Belarus, it reinforces its alliance with Russia and its role in the Union state. For Russia, it shows it can still mount large, credible exercises, despite constraints of the Ukraine war. The fifth USP is the transparency observation element. Inviting NATO observers, having media coverage, gives it legitimacy and reduces full isolation, which is somewhat unusual for Russian drills. Taken together, those USPs make Zapad 2025 more than a run-of-the-mill military exercise. It is a multifaceted strategic tool. Then there is the question of price, meaning both literal cost and strategic cost implication. The literal financial cost is not publicly broken down in detail, but we can infer that moving personnel, armored vehicles, missile systems, jets, naval assets, drones, coordinating logistics across two countries is expensive. There is also the cost of opportunity. Some Russian-Belarusian forces are tied up in training rather than other tasks. Resources are diverted. The strategic cost is perhaps higher. Europe and NATO are unsettled by the maneuver, which may drive stronger defensive alliances, more deployments on NATO's eastern flank, higher military alertness, and potential arms competition. For Belarus, aligning so closely with Russia may further isolate it from the West, increasing its dependency and risk in case of conflict escalation. For Russia, the cost includes possible signaling of aggression, which may provoke stronger sanctions or military countermeasures. There is also the cost in terms of flexibility. Once you commit to large drills, you may reduce the element of surprise. On the benefit-cost trade-off, the cost is significant, but the Allies evidently judge the benefits, strategic messaging, readiness, deterrence, worth it. Finally, in the conclusion, what do we take away from Zapad 2025? In sum, the exercise represents a major strategic move by Russia and Belarus, one that blends training, integration, deterrence, and signaling all in one. The exterior view shows a show of force near Europe's flank. The interior reveals deep integration of command, logistics, modern multi-domain warfare preparation, and a serious rehearsal of possible future conflicts. While safety features and observers are present, the underlying capabilities and scenarios point to real capability and to concern among neighboring states. The unique selling points make it a harbinger not only of an exercise, but of evolving alliance structures and war planning concepts. And the price is not only financial, but geopolitical: stronger NATO responses, increased tension, higher stakes in Eastern Europe. For European observers and global watchers alike, Zapad 2025 is not just a drill. It is a signal that the Russian-Belarus alliance remains potent, willing to showcase itself, and keen to shape future conflict dynamics. The key question going forward will be, how will Europe and NATO respond? Will this exercise push them to greater deterrence, or spark a reactive cycle of escalation? And how will Russia and Belarus calibrate their next moves now that the exercise has concluded? Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more Global Alert updates.